Good evening and welcome to another edition of Down to the Wire. This week it is our annual Derby preview edition, kind of our Kentucky Derby Roundtable. And joining Candace and myself this week is Ryan Dickey. He is hailing from Michigan. And we have Ryan Piscuskas coming in from California. And we're going to talk, kind of just take an early look at the Derby, maybe look at the field, some of the trip notes, horses that people are considering. We'll take a look at the pace of the Derby. And overall, just kind of some first impressions, so that way when we actually get the post positions and know a little bit more about the track condition in a couple of weeks, people as they watch this over the next few weeks can kind of just write down some notes and hopefully get a few pointers as we take a look at the Kentucky Derby. Candace, Ryan, and Sebastian, welcome to the show, our Derby Roundtable, and we're going to start off with Nyquist, and he seems to be a little bit of a polarizing horse as the most likely post-time favorite. Sebastian, kind of give me some of your thoughts on Nyquist and what do you expect to see out of him in this Kentucky Derby?
Well, I expect a good performance from Nyquist. He's a really, really nice horse. He's undefeated, and I've loved him every time. He answers every call, and he just a really neat horse. He's very handy and got a lot of heart.
Ryan, any notes that you'd like to pass along on Nyquist?
I mean, he's definitely a deserving favorite. He's 7 for 7. He's coming third off his layoff. He beat a couple of the contenders here. He deserves to be the favorite, and he will be. I see him as a 5-2 shot.
All right, and Candace, some kind of opening thoughts on Nyquist.
I think for me, he certainly is the class of the field, and he's going to end up probably being the key to my wagers if something weird doesn't happen with him as far as in his training or in his post position. He's a horse who I've studied pretty extensively, so before the Florida Derby I kind of put everything on my blog about what I've seen from him, and pretty much the only downside I've seen from him is that he does have a tendency to drift when he's pressured, particularly when he's pressured from the outside. You'll see him drift quite often. I think he's done it every single time he's been pressured from the outside. So when you look at his British Juvenile, that's the most professional he's ever looked because he was the one on the outside. But he seems to have trouble taking that pressure from the outside. So believe it or not, he's actually one of these horses who I really think it would be best for him to draw outside or close to it because I think he has the speed to cross, and then that eliminates that possibility of horses really, grinding down and pressuring him throughout the race on the outside.
Now, this year, Sebastian, it seems like the 100-point races were a lot less formidable than last year, and the common pattern seemed to be you had a couple of races with some fast paces. The Arkansas Derby came back with a fast pace and it kind of melted down. The Bluegrass had a fast pace and melted down, and then the Santa Anita Derby had a fast pace and melted down. Was there anything else you kind of noticed about the preps, and how do you kind of handicap that in when you start to evaluate some of these horses and put them into contender and kind of pretender status?
Well, when I'm looking at these races, I'm really focusing on where they sat in the race. So, for example, a horse like More Spirit, he sat really close to a really suicidal pace, and then he kind of came on at the end, but he'd already got blown past by Exaggerator. A performance like that, I'm not going to knock too bad in the margin, considering how close he was, versus an effort from like a Zulu who sat off of a really not fast pace at all, and then he just kind of dropped anchor at the 3/8 pole. I'm really going to downgrade an effort like that. So it's just little things like that, like where they sat or how they, moved along during the race and like the internal fractions and things like that.
Ryan, do you think maybe the pace kind of influenced some of the winners in the final preps?
Sure, but for most races, that's the key, is the pace makes the race. As far as all of the late Derby 100-point preps, I think the Louisiana Derby, even though there was that meltdown, I think it was the best telling prep race to kind of gauge how these 3-year-olds are. Gunrunner has really impressed me. Tom's Ready came in second, and Dazzling Gem also hit the board. So I think that was the best of the races, and I think the Wood Memorial was just terrible. I don't think anybody from that race has a chance.
Candace, anything you noticed about the paces of the race? I know it seemed like
both the Arkansas Derby and especially the Bluegrass had a really fast pace rated by Timeform US, and then that allowed some horses to come in. I mean, like this first, second, third were horses that were all late, back of the pack early on.
And that's exactly the case. And the thing you're seeing is you're seeing a lot of people saying, well, all the 100-point preps, they went really fast, so they're going to go really fast in the Derby. That's wrong. All the 100-point preps, they went really fast. So closers won all of them. So now you have half the Kentucky Derby field has legitimately no gate speed. You have a field full of closers. So it's really turned into a race that I don't see much early speed at all. I think people have become accustomed to the Derby saying, well, it's 20 horses, they never go slow. But ever since the sprinters have been kind of excluded with this new point system, they go slow plenty. And I would be pretty surprised if that didn't happen again this year because of the fact you've had so many closers who have been able to snag, hit the board these last couple preps, and now they're in the race.
Let's keep it with Candace here. And Candace, I guess, what about the Wood and the Santa Anita? It's kind of been a sloppy trail this year. We had the Kentucky Jockey Cold Club was in the slop, Delta Jackpot was in the slop, and the Wood, and a few other races were in the slop. Do you kind of feel like you have a handle on some of those horses, or you still kind of got some question marks?
I mean, you definitely have question marks. I think slop, if anything, it can, really you can have horses who can freak over that surface or can really improve their running over those sort of surfaces, and we've seen that throughout. Horses like an Arrow Force, horses like a Greenpoint Crusader that really were just slop lovers. I mean, even at the Wood, people made such a big deal because, oh, Trojan Nation made it to hit the board, but look at the race, it was slop. That was Trojan Nation as by Street Cry out of a summer squall mare named Storm Song. Plenty of slop breeding in there. That's not a shock that a horse like that would, be able to elevate his performance over that surface, run the same race over a dry track, and I'm sure he's not there. I think if anything, when I look at slop races, I try to find horses who I can forgive the effort for. At Santa Anita, you see that with Dancing Candy with just as much about the pace as the slop there. I downgrade Exaggerator because we've seen now time and time again he improves substantially for running in the slop. Pretty much every good effort he's had, bar his second to Nyquist, has been over sloppy track. And the same when you go over to the Wood, I don't necessarily downgrade Outwork. I think he was fine. I don't really love him. I don't hate him. He's kind of a middle of the group kind of a horse. He just is what he is. But say, a horse like Adventist, and he probably won't make it in the Derby, but maybe he'll run, in the Pat Day Mile or one of these other races. I thought he ran really well for a horse that, when you watch the race, clearly was uncomfortable over the sloppy track. There wasn't one moment of that race where he looked like he was comfortable or relaxed, and yet he still kind of flew home late and made a move. And those are the horses who I try to take from these sloppy races and try to bet them back wherever they show up again going forward.
Got a question for the panel here. You guys can kind of just take a swing at it. I think a lot of people think right now the West Coast horses are a little bit of an advantage. We saw a Maiden come second in the Lexington. We saw Collected ship over there and win the Lexington. We saw a Maiden come in second in the Wood. And we saw Cupid go from a maiden race to the Rebel and win a $900,000 stakes. Who wants to tackle, is the West Coast a little bit higher in superiority right now, or is that just kind of the way the results kind of shaked out?
Well, if you look at the Brisnet average class ratings over the last three, horses number 1, 2, and 3 that are in the Derby are Exaggerator, More Spirit, and Dancing Candy. So those are all California horses. So if you were to ask which circuit had, has the best contenders in this race, I'd say definitely the California horses. You can even throw Nyquist in there, even though he raced at multiple tracks.
You can throw in others too. I mean, even someone like Lauban, when he hit the board in New York, I didn't necessarily take him seriously. I thought that he really benefited from a bias that day, but I thought he backed that up in the Bluegrass, running fourth. I mean, it wasn't some monumental run, but I thought he ran credibly. And for a horse who's still a maiden, it definitely shows the strength of the California form when it's traveling so well and standing up in other locations.
Sebastian, you're going to be kind of keying some California horses in your wagers, or doesn't it really affect how you're going to handicap the race?
In terms of the race in general, it's probably not going to affect me too much. I think California horses just have much more tactical speed. So when you see these races, the California horses string the race out, and then when it's time to get going, they have a bit of a lead. You see Cupid, you see Lauban. Those are the same scenarios where it's like the horses from California, they're bred. They're not necessarily bred differently. They're raced differently. It's out here. It's a speedway, so you get the lead and you win. You go to another course, and then you apply the same tactics. And so I kind of have a bit of an issue when races are run in New York where you get a couple jockeys grab and then you let the speed go, and that's what ended up happening in these races. So in the Derby, for me, I'm looking to key just who I think is best over who I think can stay the distance and who's going to be coming late at the end.
Sometimes horses have to switch styles in the Kentucky Derby just because of the 20-horse field. Candace, do you see anybody that may be able to show a new kind of level of versatility in the Derby this year that kind of could be part of your wagering?
I think it'll be Mohaymen. I mean, I don't know if I'll bet on him. It's going to depend on where he draws. But he's been the one all along that I keep telling people. He's a closer. He doesn't have speed. I mean, he's been in these 5, 6-horse fields where they've gone slow and he's sitting 2 lengths off the pace, and now all of a sudden people think he has tactical speed because he's sitting 3rd. He doesn't. This is a closer, and I expect him to be pretty far back in the Derby. How it shakes out draw-wise and what kind of a run I think he can get is what's going to really, dictate whether or not I'll use him. Regardless, I probably only use him at the bottom end of tries. He's okay. I don't think he's a world beater, but he is the one who I think people at the end of the day will be like, what was he doing back there? But he doesn't have speed, and people have kind of made up this fantasy that he has tactical speed that he doesn't have.
Ryan, Brody's Cause. What's up with Tampa Bay, and then what happened in the Bluegrass, and is this horse a horse to be taken seriously?
No, I don't think so. I just toss Brody's Cause altogether. If you look at where he is on the first call for all of his races, 8th is the lowest, or is the highest he's ever been. 11-9, 11-10, 9-8. Not to say that he can't be a closer, but I don't think he has the class to close with these other horses. Well, like Candace said, Mohaymen, she wants him to be the closer there. I don't think he is a speed horse. I don't think he's a tactical speed horse, but I think Mohaymen is going to be downgraded by a lot of people due to his last race, but I think he's still a force in this Derby.
Sebastian, we kind of have this pool of closers from Arkansas. You've got Creator, you've got Sudden Breaking News, and you've got Whitmore. Which of those 3 do you think could maybe run the best of those 3 in Kentucky?
The best of those 3, I'd give it to Sudden Breaking News. Granted, his last effort, I wasn't impressed. He sat a little closer than I thought he would, and he really got done in. Well, I can't even say he got done in by the pace. The internal fraction from the 6 furlong point to the mile was something around 26. So they really, really stopped there, and he didn't make up any ground anyway. But then at the same time, Creator came from behind him and got a good split and then kicked on. But he really moved by him like he was standing still. So I want to say Sudden Breaking News, based solely on pedigree and what he's done 2 starts ago. But I don't have any good feel for any of these horses coming out of Arkansas.
Let's take a look. We'll go around the room and maybe pick out a horse that's going to be over kind of 15-1 that you think can run in the trifecta and is going to be a key to your wagering. Ryan, let's start with you. A horse right around 13-1 or higher that you're going to be using.
Real easy answer for me, More Spirit, because first of all, I'm already locked in on him at 13-1. I think he's the race winner. I thought he was sitting on a race for the Santa Anita Derby, but unfortunately the rain came. He has never finished out of the exacta. He's finished, second, first, second, first, second, first, first, second. Another horse who did that to start his career is Animal Kingdom. I'm not saying that More Spirit is exactly like Animal Kingdom, but if you look at the races, the first race that Animal Kingdom didn't finish first or second was his Belmont. So I think More Spirit is going to move forward, and I think that he's the race winner. And I've got him at 13-1. He'll probably be 15-1 on the morning line, probably 10-1 by the time the race starts.
All right, Sebastian, do you have a kind of a long shot pick, 13-1 or higher that you're going to be using and kind of playing around with?
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. I'm on the more Spirit wagon. I've been on that wagon for a very long time now. I don't know if he'll be 13-1. That's just the horse I'm going to give it as a price because my other two are Nyquist and Gunrunner, and I know for a fact I'm not going to get 15-1 on either of those. I'm all in on more Spirit. I like how he runs. I love the low head carry. He moves so fluidly. And, he's just a grinder. He's a plotter. I think that's going to serve him really well going 10 furlongs, especially when he doesn't really slow down. He doesn't speed up, but he doesn't slow down. And I think that's going to benefit him really well in the last eighth of a mile.
Candace, who's kind of your long shot play here?
Well, I'm going California, but I'm going to someone else. I've been on Dancing Candy for a long time, and his last race in no way, shape, or form made me like him any less. It just made me understand him a little better in that, I kept saying all his races, well, he relaxes so well, he's going to be able to carry his speed for a route of ground. And he has been until he was told what to do. Basically, it was his last race when Mike Smith really roused him out of the gate. That was the plan. They've said so much that that was the plan. It wasn't a smart plan, but it was a plan nonetheless, that they roused him out of the gate. And I think at that moment that Twirling Candy blood really kicked in. We remember Twirling Candy he had an attitude, we'll say that. And so Dancing Candy's kind of like his sire in that way. If you let him do what he wants to do, he'll do it. But if you're going to tell him what to do, then he's going to show you how it's done. We see that when he schools, he gets very studdish. He gets very worked up. So he's one of these that you just kind of have to let him go at his own pace and run at his own tempo. And when you do that, he relaxes beautifully and really carries his speed well. This is a Derby, I think, that sets up for a horse like him because there's no speed in there at all. I mean, it's really him, outwork, and Gunrunner isn't really a lot of speed. I mean, there isn't a lot there. If Laoban gets in, then maybe it's a little bit different. But Dancing Kenny's ran and raced with Laoban before, and it was fine. So I'm not terribly worried about there being some massive speed duel in there. There just isn't a lot of the speed in that field, and I think he's going to be overlooked. The only other one I would give a look to that's going to be a big price, really, at this point that I know of without having the draw, would be Creator, just because he's a different type of closure than the others. He makes one big sweeping run. That's why we saw him pass Sudden Breaking News at Oaklawn. Everyone seems to be gravitating towards Sudden Breaking News, but my fear for him is that he has a much shorter, sharper turn of foot than Creator. That serves you well on the turf. That doesn't serve you well in a 20-horse dirt race. I think he's going to be the one closing late, and everyone's going to be like, oh, man, he was so close. He almost did it. But you have to wait so long on Sudden Breaking News before you let him go, and that's where he gets in trouble in the Derby. So Dancing Candy from the front, and hopefully Creator gets up there from the back.
Sebastian, you kind of mentioned Nyquist as one of your top 3 contenders. I've seen a couple of different, some people think he's going to be on the lead, some people think he can raid off the pace. Kind of where do you envision his trip possibly in the Kentucky Derby? Still the post positions to come, but if he got a normal post between 5 and 15.
If he's between 5 and 15, I expect him to be tactical. I think I'll have another type trip. I think he's going to be somewhere closer to the outside, maybe 5th or 6th. He's not going to be too far back because he does have good tactical speed. He's not the fastest on the front end, and I think it's going to do him a good service come this Derby. I think he'll be right in a good spot, and then he can just kick from anywhere. He's just a really nice horse.
All right, our Derby Roundtable continues on down to the wire. Now we're going to go around the room and our toss horse for the race. We'll start with Candace, then we'll go to Ryan, and then we'll go to Sebastian. But who's kind of the horse that you think will get, be one of the top 4 or 5 favorites that you're going to, because I think that's how you have to play a race like this. You have to have a little bit of an opinion to kind of feel good, and hopefully then you can kind of narrow down your tickets a little bit. You can't play them all. I guess you can, but it doesn't seem profitable.
No, it wouldn't be profitable to play that way, that's for sure. When you start talking 3rd and 4th favorite behind Nyquist, I think it gets a little bit tricky. So for me, I don't know how terribly short he'll be, but I think for me it would be Brody's Cause. I liked him in the Bluegrass. I bet him in there. I think he's a nice individual. But, again, we're talking Derby, and like we said, these horses who make these really quick runs late. These horses like a Sudden Breaking News, who they're closers, but they're such deep closers. You have to sit, and then finally you can let them go. It really is that style that you see in turf races. It's not to say he can't win dirt races. Obviously he can, but just in the Derby itself, when you're looking towards a closer, you look towards the Commanding Curves, the Golden Souls. These are horses that were plotters. They made those big sweeping moves. They're able to do okay because they're already halfway through the field when you get to the top of the stretch. I don't want a horse at the top of the stretch who's still sitting in last. And I think Brody's Cause could be one of those, and that's probably why I would kind of try to toss him and try to beat him in spots.
Ryan, who's your toss?
Well, Candace isn't going to like this, but my toss is Dancing Candy. Yeah, sorry. I kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think Nyquist should be forwardly placed. If you look at his first calls in his 7 races, let's see, first, second, 8th, and that was in the BC Juvenile, second, and first. So he has a propensity to get out to the lead. Outwork obviously wants to get out to the lead. Destin should be forwardly placed. More Spirit should be forwardly placed. I think Dancing Candy, for me, is going to be a short price horse that I will toss and hope that he gets to the front of the pack and then ends at the back.
Oh my gosh, he can't just lose. He has to finish last?
I don't want him to be last for you, but just not off the board.
Okay.
All right, Sebastian, who's the horse that you're going to toss and kind of you think you have a good read on?
Well, since I'm going last and Candace already tossed the horse I don't like and Ryan's tossed the horse I don't like, I'm going to have to go with Mohaymen. I don't want any part of Mohaymen come the Derby. This is way too far. Way too far. And I think the balloon popped on him. I think the work today that he put in was really bad. I didn't like how he kept getting niggled on by the rider. His ears were pinned. Yeah, he looked like he was moving over the surface, but I feel like he went way too hard on that surface to get 46. So for me, I don't want any part of Mohaymen, and I'm going to I'll enjoy him down the line when they cut him back to a mile and at one turn, maybe the Met next year, and I'll probably be all over him then, but I want no part of him come the first Saturday in May.
Candace, you focus in on some of the international racing. Give us an opinion on the Pride of Japan, the third tappet in the race, Lanny.
Well, I mean, I like him as an individual. He made me a lot of money on UAE Derby Day for being loyal to him there, so I do like him. He's been good to me. He's one who I think for sure he's going to be the wise guy horse. I mean, he just reaps a bit because the internationals tend to get a little bit of play as it is because people are looking for something different, and because they're always coming off of a win and usually a dominating win. Lonnie even ups the ante a little more because he is a tappet, and because there is a lot of stamina underneath in his pedigree. His Damn Heavenly Romance won the 10 Show Autumn, that's 2,400 meters, and then obviously he has Sadler's Wells underneath, so there's quite a bit of stamina, and I'm sure we're all going to hear a lot about all of that coming closer to the Derby, about how this is the horse that's really bred for the 10 furlongs, and that's probably true. But, as is the case every year, I worry about these international horses being run off their feet early in these races. An American dirt tempo is very, very different from overseas, and just more often than not, they come here and they can't keep up. And I worry about that being the case with Lonnie, especially because he really is a grinder. Make no bones about it. His UAE Derby was fantastic. He basically fell on his face at the start, was still able to go and move up 3 wide and sat there throughout and really hard fought, got the victory there. But what I will also say is I felt like at Maidan that day, it wasn't so bad to be outside, and it really typically, other than the day that there was a crazy inside speed bias, typically that dirt course in general is pretty forgiving to being out wide as well, so long as you're up on the speed like he was. So take it for what it was. It was a good win. I think he's going to be a great dirt horse in Japan, but I wouldn't have him here, not because of the distance, but because of the pace.
Ryan, a lot of differing of opinions on Mo Tom. What is kind of your thoughts on him? I don't know. I don't think he would have won both those races at the fairgrounds. He may have gotten to him in one of them, but what's kind of your thoughts?
I'm going to play him. If he gets a favorable post position, I'm going to play him in a trifecta. I think he has a shot. He had to have Cupid get out, right, to get in. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so and that happened. So he got in. He should be all of 20-1 on the morning line. If he gets a favorable post, I think he has a shot.
Okay. What about some of these horses that haven't won a prep yet this spring, Sebastian? You know, you've got like Whitmore, who's ran 3 good races, and then Exaggerator kind of broke through the last time. Kind of where are you at with Exaggerator, and what about Whitmore? Because we found out today that he's going to get a substantial jockey change. A guy that you might have heard of, Victor Espinosa, is going to be riding him.
The jock change, I'm tossing Whitmore. The jock change is a huge negative for me. You go from Mike Smith to Irad Ortiz to Victor. It's in my not humble opinion that coming from off the pace, Victor couldn't finish his sandwich. Going to Exaggerator now, he's completely slop upgraded to me. The pace in the San Diego Derby was wicked. He needed a 45-second half to get up. If they go 47, does he get up? Well, I don't think so. So for me, Exaggerator, he's got a really nice quarter-mile turn of foot. It's just his window was so small. If Kent goes too soon, he's going to hit the front idle, kind of like he did in the last 16th of a mile, last 8th of a mile in the San Diego Derby. If he goes too late, he's going to be the late run type, the commanding curve that, oh, what if? So he's got a very small, narrow window, but he's got a really good kick, very talented horse.
Let's talk. I think the Oaks Derby Double is always a popular bet, almost like $3 million in the pool. And with Songbird out, I think a lot of people are going to spread in the Oaks, try to get alive to the Derby. So, Candace, give me 3 horses to include in the Derby half, the Oaks Derby Double. And then, Ryan, you give me your 3 that you're going to throw in the Oaks Derby Double. And then, Sebastian.
I just love how you set up Sebastian for that. It was like T-ball. You threw up the ball, and he hit it out of the park with Whitmore and the jockey change. That was great. For me, on the Oaks Derby Double, I mean, that's where you're looking. That's for, at least for me, where I'm looking to play prices in there, because that's one that if you can get the price, especially with Songbird out now, you can really get a payday. For me, my 3 that I would be using in there are Dancing Candy, who I already said, Creator, who I mentioned earlier as well. And then the other one who I'd probably be looking to use is Tom's Ready. This is a horse who I really quite liked his run in the Lecomte. I thought he ran fantastic in there. And the Risen Star was a complete forgive. We've talked about this race so many times, Greg, and how they were like 8 wide on the first turn. He was one of those. Race was over there, and he really came back and backed things up in the Louisiana Derby. This is a horse who has some talent, and I think he definitely wants this trip. I'll actually give you one more. I'll play 4. The other one will be My Man Sam, the horse who I've been a big fan of for a long time. And Chad Brown, I've been covering Keeneland for Horse Player now, and Chad Brown has been so ice cold with winners, it's ridiculous. But My Man Sam in the Bluegrass ran extremely well. So if there is something going on with this barn, and the barn's a little cold right now, it's always positive to see, a horse from a cold barn run really well like he did. So I like him as a horse. I like him for the distance. So those will be my 4.
So now, you said you liked Nyquist a little bit earlier. So
Yes.
Is that the strategy, or just you're not going to use them in doubles, figuring you'll play them straight up, or are you thinking, well, let's go for the crush and take some of these bombs?
I think for that, that's the plan, is to go for the crush. I mean, Nyquist is never a horse that I would bet straight out or just bet to win. Instead, I think for me, the way to attack it is to play the Oaks Derby Double without him, to play the Oaks Derby Woodford Reserve Pick 3 without him, and then try to play trifectas and wheel him second and third. So, have 4 or 5 horses on top, put him second, 4 or 5 horses the same underneath, and then do the same with him in third. Hope he gets beat, but you still have him hitting the board in there. And so, he still is a very key, integral part of my wagers, but you're still hoping that you get someone else to beat him in there.
Ryan, who are the big 3 you're going to use in your double?
Well, I'm going to have to give you some full disclosure here. Until Songbird caught a little fever and wasn't in the race, I really wasn't even going to look at the race. I was just going to bet Songbird and just go into the Derby hoping I'd catch a long shot. But just looking at the possible entries, I like Landover C. I mean, obviously Rachel's Valentina people are going to bet. So, I mean, if Rachel's Valentina and Nyquist win, it's not going to pay anything at all. But a horse that I bet a couple weeks ago at Gulfstream that I really liked was Go Maggie Go. So I think she'll be a decent price. So I'm going to go with Go Maggie Go.
And then on the Derby half, where are you going to settle in on your three?
More Spirit, Gunrunner, and, you know, I kind of like Destin a little bit, but that 8-week layoff, it really pushes me away. So I think if I'm going to put two bombs on there, I might as well throw Nyquist on there, just you know, because if you run this race 1,000 times, he's going to win the majority of the races. He's going to win more than all of the other horses. So I think I would have to throw Nyquist on there.
Sebastian, how do you play these doubles? Do you play to crush, or are you just going to take the 3 horses you like and just use them in the back half of the double?
That's right. That's what I'm going to do. Take the three horses I like in back half: Gunrunner, Nyquist, and More Spirit. And I think if I can get Lewis Bay in the first half of this double, that I don't care who wins, I'm going to make money regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Oak situation being, you know, really a bunch of 4-5 to 1s. And last year we actually had a nice price with Lovely Marie. She was like 6-7 to 1, but you just got the back half was Pharaoh at 3 to 5. So I mean, I think you can really, and then who knows? They announced today that Tepin isn't going to run in the Woodford most likely. So we shouldn't have an even money favored in there. We should really have. You could have potentially 3-5 to 1s, which makes it a whole different betting race, Candace.
Yeah, I mean it's a big difference from years past where it was untappable Wise Dan. California Crows. Let's not have that again, please.
The old $4.50 one. Ryan local Quickie Mart and bought himself some nachos with cheese with that money.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That
was back in the day. That was back in the day, Craig, when you and I were talking on here about how we would play a small ticket and single against Wise Dan, and people thought we were out of our mind. And we picked Kagan, who finished second.
That Wise Dan race in the Woodford Reserve in 2014, or was it 15? No, it was 14. 2014. That was probably one of the most exciting races I've ever seen live.
Oh, and Seek again was in there too.
No quit whatsoever in Wise Dan. He showed how great of a horse he was in that race.
Yeah.
So Sebastian, walk me through the pace of this race here. I mean, just a simple question: will the pace be moderate, fast, or slow? And will it who will it favor? And give me the trip through here for More Spirit. How would you like to see More Spirit upset Nyquist?
Pace-wise, I think it's going to be moderate to kind of fast. I feel like at 10 furlongs, Dancing Kitty might be a bit of a runoff. I think he needs separation, so he's going to be out there. I think maybe on like a 46-2. I know Outwork's going to be right on him, and then I think it's just those two really with real tactical speed, that need to be really close to the lead. I want More Spirit to sit right about 7th or 8th and just get a nice trip, cover, no cover, doesn't matter. Just have Gary stay out of his way, and then Nyquist can run from anywhere. If he's not in the back half of the field, I think he's good to go. If he's sitting 5th or 6th, it's going to be a nice race. And Gunrunner's going to be close to. They're all tactical. That's a common theme for me. I got a lot of tactical horses, very handy.
You know, I think a horse that is kind of dividing another horse. You know, we've got horses that seem to be pros and cons this year. And Candace, Destin. I mean, this horse, the speed figure guys love this guy. I think it's Thoroughgraph or Rags. One of their owners of the sheets owns part of Destin. And they gave this horse a negative number on the Thoroughgraph. And so the numbers players kind of like Destin. Where are you at with him just watching him, and kind of how do you think that number shifts out? I mean, it came back a key race. 2 runners that he beat came back to win.
Oh, it is. I mean, I don't know how much thought you can put into that because you have a horse like Brody's Cuz who wasn't competitive and he came back to win. Destin is a weird one for me, and he's one I'm going to have to go through and really watch all of his races in a row, kind of like I did it last year with Dortmund and Pharaoh and Carpe Diem. And that's what I'm going to end up having to do with him because right now, you know, I don't love him. I don't dislike him. He's just there. And so I think in the right pace scenario, he can be competitive. Kind of that moderate tempo I think would suit him best where you almost get a partial collapse up front and he can be that one horse to get first run. but that's a very specific scenario. So he's probably the #1 horse who I really want to divulge in deeper as we get closer to the Derby and watch every single one of his races in a row. And it's something I try to do when we get to Derby, because a lot of these horses have now 7, 8, 9 starts, and you can really see how a horse has progressed over time, and you can get to know some of their quirks and maybe draws that would be good or bad for them, or scenarios that would be favorable or unfavorable by just watching all the races in a row.
Ryan, what's kind of your thoughts on Exaggerator? Did he really improve? Did he take advantage of the pace? Was it slop-aided? Give some of your overall thoughts on Exaggerator, and really, can he go 10 furlongs?
See, that's the problem, is I don't know if he can go the 10 furlongs. It was slop-aided, the Santa Anita, but you know, if you look at his speed figures in all of his races, if you just write the speed figures of all the horses and don't put their names in there, and you look at them, you'd think that Exaggerator would be Nyquist, or you think that he would be Mo Heyman, but Exaggerator has good both Beyer and the Brisnet numbers, so I think he's good. I just don't think he's good enough to win. I think he could hit the board.
Any of these other long shots, My Man Sam, Majesto, Trojan Nation, Sebastian, any of those horses interest you at all, or a quick note about any of them?
You know, I really like Trojan Nation. If he wasn't a maiden, I'd be all over him. He hasn't shown that will to win yet, but man, if he's not the most well-bred horse in the race, I'm hard-pressed to find another one. Majesto being a half to overanalyze, I'm a big fan of that too. Not so much that I was a fan of overanalyze, just the fact that he's got another stakes winner in his bloodlines. My Man Sam, I kind of woke up from the little stupor I was in. Trap Shot on top really hurts me, at least wanting to play him in the Derby. I can't see son of Trap Shot winning the Derby, but if he runs well, good for him.
Yeah, it should be interesting. All right, so the most surprising, what do you think? We'll go around the room here on Sunday as people redboard the race. What's the one thing that people are going to say, like, oh man, I just totally blew this, or this really surprised me? What would knock your headlines off, Candace?
I think we'll see kind of similar to what we saw when California Chrome won. I think people are going to say, wow, they went so slow. This is a terrible Derby, which means nothing. They say that every year, but because they don't go as fast as everyone thinks they're going to go, then all of a sudden, this is the worst Derby ever. The Beyer speed figure is going to be 85, and this is the worst crop of all time. So that's what I'm ready for. When Dancing Candy blows up the top board at 50-1, that must mean the crop's terrible to everybody.
Ryan, do you envision Uncle Mo or Tapit Trifecta, or what would shock the world for you?
I'm gonna be like Muhammad Ali. I'm gonna shock the world. I'm gonna go with more spirit. Gary Stevens, man, he's gonna win. People are gonna say, I can't believe we fell asleep on Gary Stevens. Yeah, Derby.
13-1. So it's gonna be like a Willie Shoemaker angle for Gary Stevens, huh?
Yes. He's the man, Gary Stevens.
All right, Sebastian, what are you going to go with to shock the world, or like you would just shake your head if this happened in the Derby?
What's going to end up happening, on Sunday, it's going to be like every year in the last 10 years, I can't believe I bet a Tapit in the Derby. It happens every year, and every year everybody's like, this Tapit, he's going to run well, Frosted's going to run well, Pyro's going to run well, and then the Derby comes, and they're still running the next day, and everybody's looking around like, well, I tore up my tickets, and he's at the quarter pole. We'll see.
Well, I think, speed figures, now that we've got multiple outlets of speed figures and things like that, I think it gets analyzed a little bit more, and I think once all the numbers come out and shakes out, I guess, I think the tote board is going to be you're going to have just a bunch of like 12-1s in here. But not all 12-1s are going to be created equally. I think some of those 12-1s on the win board are going to be 20-1 in trifectas, and I think the payouts could pay a little bit this year.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think so too.
All right, that's going to do it for our Kentucky Derby Roundtable edition of Down to the Wire. Next week, me and Candace will be back. We'll discuss a few races for the upcoming weekend, and then in 2 weeks, we'll be back with our official Derby picks as we get closer to the Derby, and by that time, we'll know the post position. Our thanks again to Ryan Dickey and Sebastian Piscuskas, and thanks for joining us on Down to the Wire.